It's no surprise that the number of homeless in the county has gone up. But why, and what's being done about it? The proposed border wall almost shut the government down. Could it still happen? Women in the Marine Corps, are they still harassed and degraded, or are things different now? And a retired Marine general with San Diego ties will try to shape up the U.S. Secret Service. I'm Mark Sauer. The KPBS Roundtable starts now. Welcome to our discussion of the week's top stories. I'm Mark Sauer, and joining me at the KPBS Roundtable today are KPBS reporter Susan Murphy. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Mark. Glad to be here.
Glad you're here today. Chris Genowine, editor and publisher of Times of San Diego. Hi, Chris.
Great to be here, Mark.
And reporter Steve Walsh of KPBS News. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
Good. And freelance journalist Tony Perry. Hi, Tony.
Hi, Mark.
Glad to have you back again. Well, it's a tragic story in the world's richest nation that keeps getting worse. More people are homeless this year in San Diego. More are living in tents on the street, plagued by addiction and mental illness. The mayor says this can't go on, yet the stock of low-cost housing dwindles. Susan, start with this year's annual count. Give us the basic numbers.
Well, the number is that we have 9,100 people, basically, that are homeless, living in shelters and on the streets. And overall, countywide, that's a 5% increase. The big story here is that there are more people living on the streets, 14% increase of the number of people living, a lot of them in tents. We've seen tents, especially in downtown, double. And these tents aren't just single tents. You drive down the East Village and you see these extensive handmade structures that can stretch 50 feet with, multiple people living inside.
Mm-hmm. And then break down a little bit more. A lot of these homeless folks are considered chronic, the hardcore homeless. Explain who those folks are.
Right. We've had a surge in chronically homeless by 61% across the county. And they describe chronically homeless as somebody who has been living outside basically for a year and who has a disability. So that's a really huge, number as well, disheartening number. We have a lot of our most vulnerable people living on the streets, and it really equates to 1 in 3 people who are living on the streets are chronically homeless.
And that's a real difficult population to get help for. Now, in your 3-part series with KPBS this week, you talked to Assistant SDPD Chief Chuck Kay about the type of people he sees on the streets. Let's hear a little bit of that.
Somebody gets arrested, the property is impounded, oftentimes they're in jail for 3 days. I've seen where this is a failed effort over and over in cities across the country, and I hate to see us go down that same failed path. We're filling up our county jail beds, using our county jail as an emergency shelter for people.
And that was
we had the wrong bite there, didn't we?
That was the wrong bite, but let's go on to this one, because I also talked to an advocate, and he's been kind of waging this online Facebook campaign
and that's who we just
city.
heard from.
That's
right?
who we just
Michael
heard from. And yeah, basically he is saying that the city is criminalizing these homeless people who are living in their tents. They're being pushed block by block as police come in and enforce, clear the sidewalks, get out of here. You can't be here during the day. They give citations, they lead to stay-away orders and even arrests. He says our jails are being used as a shelter, basically.
And that's just a constant process, back and forth, and the arrests and the warnings and the citations.
Basically, pretty much every day you can go out early in the morning and police are out and they are enforcing policies, by the city, because we have, ordinances on the books that say, we can't block the right-of-way for people. When I was out there the other day and I witnessed one of these, as I have over the past year many times, children were walking through the middle of the street because the tents were lined on, at least one side. They were walking to school, straight down the middle of the street, and it's all over the East Village.
Chris?
Don't we have one of the largest populations in the country, compared to other cities?
Yes, we do. I think we rank number 5 overall in the nation. It's a huge problem, and it's downtown. The population has spiked, I think, 27% over the year before, and mainly that's because we have a lot of our social services there and our outreach. People can get meals there. There are some shelters, etc. So sometimes, a lot of times, I'm hearing that when people first become homeless, that is where they go.
So what is
our beloved mayor, Kevin Faulkner. What is he doing about this? He's held some press conferences and reiterated the San Diego motto, we'll do something if someone else will give us some money. Are we doing anything to bring these numbers down?
Well, there's a lot of committees being formed. They are going to be announcing, actionable steps. Many of our political officials have said that we have hit rock bottom, basically that we are going to be seeing improvements starting this year. They have vowed to increase our permanent supportive housing stock by the thousands, 2,500 or so or more. That's going to take time, of course. In the meantime, he's also proposing a hotel tax, which would, trickle down money into our homelessness issue as well.
Now, the advocates that you interviewed, they talk about the criminalization of homeless and how what a difficult situation that is for the people on the street. I did want to bring up that bite we mentioned before. This is Assistant Police Chief Chuck Kay and what he sees on the streets.
Okay.
When you look at the population, you can see that there are people who suffer from drug or alcohol dependency, or both. There's a portion of the population that also are faced with debilitating mental illness issues at various degrees, and then there are, of course, people that have part of the population coming out of the prison system that are not finding a safety net to get up and out of the street.
All right, so that's the police view here, but as I said, the advocates you speak with, they say, well, this isn't working. This criminalizing this isn't helping.
Right. Well, the police play a lead role in managing this population. And, like I said, they are following some of the policies, but they also have a homeless outreach team. And they have last year successfully, taken 800 people off the street. They say that they have, a very compassionate side as well in trying to link people to social services. But the problem that they face is that people deny these services. It's very challenging. It takes repeated contacts.
Yeah, there's vacancies in shelters and spots going unused, which I think is surprising when you read that in your story.
That was very surprising to me, and I don't know which shelters are available because that was not listed, because I just recently did a story about the shelters being full. Lists were 100 names long in so many of these shelters, so I don't know which beds are available, but I have talked to many homeless people who just basically say that they don't like shelters. I've heard everything from bed bugs to they can't bring their pets. Every other person on 17th Street has a puppy or a dog.
You mentioned a transient occupancy, hotel motel, visitor tax, a little bit maybe.
Right.
Going to be voted on. Now in Los Angeles, hardly a model of social awareness, they hitched up their pants and got public support for a property tax and a sales tax.
That likely here?
Is that just so far beyond the San Diego way of doing things that we ought to just not even talk about it?
I guess we'll have to wait and see, because it is, likely going to go to the voters soon, and it needs 2/3 to pass. It would bring it would bring in $10 million a year initially, I believe, for a number of years, and this would charge tourists and not local taxpayers, right? So who knows what will happen?
But no property, no sales. That's not even been discussed.
Not to my knowledge. I haven't looked into that.
I think it is just the hotel motel.
All right. Well, we'll have to see how that vote goes, and that'll be, I'm sure we'll be doing many more segments on that as we move along, and we are going to move along now. Well, good news, the government won't shut down, at least not this week. Congress and President Trump agreed on a stopgap legislation to fund federal agencies through at least next Friday. There was consternation when President Trump suddenly included funding for the border wall in the appropriation measure, and there was speculation he would have to withdraw the demand. Here he is this week denying that possibility.
I will say Secretary Kelly, formerly General Kelly, is doing an incredible job. And I was just with him a little while ago, and he said, we definitely, desperately need the wall. And we're going to have the wall built. I mean, I don't know what people are talking. I watch these shows and the pundits in the morning. They don't know what they're talking about. The wall gets built, 100%. Thank you very much.
Well, the wall's not getting funded this week anyway, Chris. Much is made. We're at the 100-day mark now of this presidency. Certainly been eventful, but no legislative triumphs to point to. What is President Trump saying are his accomplishments so far?
Well, I think if you're President Trump, you're probably disappointed at one level because your big signature promises haven't come to fruition. We don't have the border wall started yet. Obamacare is still the law of the land. The refugee ban is hung up in the courts, and the efforts to penalize so-called sanctuary cities, that's been held up by the courts as well. On the other hand, you can point to a number of executive orders, things like canceling the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the walking back of a number of Obama-era regulations, especially when it comes to environment, and the stock market. The business community is very happy so far. So while you might be disappointed if you're President Trump, I think a lot of Americans might be quietly satisfied with how things are at this point.
Well, the wall, he made this a signature issue, as you say, rally after rally after rally. Mexico's going to pay for it. They ain't going to pay for it. Apparently, you can't get a lot of Republicans in Congress, especially those whose districts are in proximity to the border, to be real enthused about it. Democrats aren't enthused. Where are we on the wall?
It's going to be very, very difficult. The problem, I think, for Trump is it was his signature campaign promise. At those rallies, people would chant, "Build the wall," and there's nothing practical about it. It was all emotion. It was this idea that I'm going to protect you from immigrants who might take your jobs and who might change the character of the town that you live in. But most immigrants who are now here unlawfully, they came in through an airport and they overstayed their visas. Most drugs are hidden in vehicles that drive through the regular ports of entry. Putting up a wall in a rural area isn't going to change that dynamic at all. But it's a very emotional issue. I think we'll see a greater bit of wall. There's some wall now. I think we'll see more built. But I think it's going to be very hard to get the full wall.
We've had some San Diego contractors, others in California. Now there's a push in the legislature to punish those folks if they're state contractors and cut them out of state thing. I mean, this is a real controversial issue nationally, especially in California. Well,
the school board has just voted to not work with anyone who contributes to building the border wall, the San Diego Unified School Board. There are 20-something bidders who are going to be assembling bits of wall down in Otay Mesa so we can take a look, see what we like. Supposedly Homeland Security will make a decision on which walls are the winners sometime in June. But even the Secretary of Homeland Security, John Kelly, has said he doesn't think a wall makes, despite what we saw in the clip, Kelly has said it's probably some combination of walls, fence, and high-tech surveillance.
And some of that's in.
I mean, the problem here is it just keeps getting more and more expensive here. And when you have a president here just starting his term here within this 100 days, now just getting outside of the 100 days, and he's under 50% already. He's not got
record low.
Record low. Yeah. So are even Republicans particularly interested in making sure his campaign promises are fulfilled? Are they even really particularly afraid of him at this point? If they don't fulfill those promises.
I think a lot of Republicans, especially in border states, are against the wall because it's going to take land from landowners. They don't want to lose their land for this. You don't just take a couple feet along the border. You take it's up to half a mile in some cases. So that's a real fundamental problem. And so it's going to get tougher and tougher. Our Democratic Congressman Scott Peters from La Jolla said last week, look, for the same amount of money for building a wall, we could buy an aircraft carrier and a half. And I think that kind of stark realization that an impractical idea that's taking money away from building up the Navy or bringing down the debt or building lots of interstate highways, that's a difficult thing for a lot of Republicans to champion.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting when the Attorney General and Jeff Sessions and John Kelly, the head of Homeland Security, they came out at the border, did a press conference, and there was a politician with them, and he was talking. And I looked at him and I said, who is this man? Where's he from? I looked him up on Google. He was from Wisconsin. Of course. And I thought, well, there it is. There isn't anyone in California who's willing to stick their head up and say, I want that wall. So,
well, the farther you get from the border, the more you want the wall, the more worried you are about immigration. Those of us who live on the border understand that it's a massive trade opportunity with Mexico. The problems we're dealing with are not so much individual people crossing an unprotected border, but the people coming through airports and coming through the ports of entry.
Well, it keeps us in business because we didn't even get to NAFTA tax reform, Obamacare repeal and replace, and we'll talk about all of that at some other point. We're going to move on now. Well, honor and the tradition of Semper Fi, always loyal, have been tarnished by a scandal that's shaken the U.S. Marine Corps. The disgrace known as Marines United involves sharing salacious images of female service members on social media without their consent. And then the photos were accompanied by coarse and derisive comments. Steve, start with a background on what is this this website, Marines United?
Well, I think you did a pretty good job there. About a month ago, there was some reporting. It came out. They uncovered a private Facebook page called Marines United. 30,000 people were members of this, and they were sharing photos, some nude, some partially clothed women, but even more so, tons of derogatory comments directed at female Marines.
So they said hundreds of people were doing that. It wasn't by far the majority of the folks
thousands.
on this site. Yeah, thousands. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. And so, I mean, this is pretty shocking, and as we said, a big black eye for the Corps when it came out.
Yeah, and the real issue here is this is not the first go around here. The Marines have had a very similar scandal about 3 years ago. The first time around, it was something called Just the Tip of the Spear. It was one of the websites that Military Times and Task and Purpose had uncovered. Again, lots of photo sharing, lots of incredibly derogatory comments aimed at women. The Marines vowed to crack down back then. And 3 years later, we're right back in the same situation. The only thing they seem to have learned is that you make the Facebook site private, and that makes it a little harder to get at.
What about the new policy announced by the Commandant General Neller? Neller seems pretty annoyed, and he looks like a pretty tough guy. I wouldn't want to cross him. How's this policy? Is it going to work?
So there you go. So that's the situation. Now, is this any different this time around? They made a lot of these comments a couple years ago, and now you have General Neller out here coming up with a new social media policy. They've come up with a policy of the Marines and the Navy to criminalize this photo sharing here. We talked to a Colonel, Roberta Shea, from Camp Pendle. She says, this seems very different to me now. This seems different, that they're taking this much more seriously. But you talk to a lot of other women, and they'll say that, you know, we'll believe it when we see it. Now, this is not about, essentially, this is not about sharing photos. This is about the way women are treated in the Marine Corps specifically.
Yeah, and this comes at a time when women have been allowed just recently to enter combat roles. And I went out to Camp Pendleton and I talked to women who had been integrated with these male Marines in these combat positions. I talked to them extensively about, are you worried about, you know, sexual harassment, discrimination when you're out there on the battlefield having to share bunks and be in the same, and their reply was, you know, that they had earned the respect, that they had to work for that initially, but that when they're out there, they are Marines. That's all they see is that, you know, they are Marines. So this kind of seems like a little bit of a setback.
Yeah. Steve, do you see this as the call goes out for better treatment for women in the Marine Corps and to integrate them more into the Marine Corps? Do you see this influencing this issue of should the boot camp at San Diego remain all male?
Yeah, so that's the question. There was, in fact, we talked to a captain who had been out at Parris Island, which is the only place where women can go through boot camp in the Marine Corps. And, you know, her feeling and the feeling of a lot of other women is that it starts with boot camp. There is a feeling, an impression among women, among men, that the standards for women are different. They're not real Marines, and some of that comes from the separation at boot camp, that they're not incorporated, they don't go through this training together, and so they don't come out of this feeling that, you know, men come out there feeling that women are less than Marines.
Let's talk to get a woman's point of view, Colonel Roberta Shea, who you interviewed about how they're handling this incident.
Perhaps in the past we've hit on the wrong target. It's not a social media issue. This is an issue of respecting each other. This is an issue of teamwork, how we treat each other. Cohesion and teamwork is the hallmark of how we get our mission done. And our mission's hard. And there's no room. There is just no room for Marines who want to hurt or humiliate their fellow teammates.
Well, I guess the big question is this the whole culture in the Marine Corps? I mean, is it going to work, this experiment that's ongoing of women and men serving?
It's not an experiment. This is the way things are. And we've just recently, as Susan was saying, opened up combat roles, all combat roles to women. So this is just something that at some point the Marines are just going to have to grapple with.
And I think more and more female Marines will be moving into higher ranking positions where maybe this won't happen as easily, possibly.
Yeah, it brings up the whole idea of sexual assault in the military in general here, which has been an ongoing problem and continues.
This
to
is
be.
not just the Marines, but the Marines seem to struggle with this more than the other services do.
All right, well, we'll look forward to seeing what happens and how this story progresses. Well, speaking of scandals, the United States Secret Service has been reeling in recent years from reports of agents hiring prostitutes, of intruders wandering the White House grounds. The agency's black eye has undermined public confidence in the Secret Service. And now a new chief has been named to restore that reputation and boost flagging morale among agents. And the new chief, Tony, has San Diego ties.
Yes,
you knew this guy when he was here. What kind of guy is he? Tell us about him.
Very candid, very straightforward. He was the point man in having to explain how it is a Marine jet crashed and killed 4 civilians, or some years earlier he had to explain how a Marine transport plane crashed in Pakistan and killed 7 people. When there's bad stuff, he stands up and says, "It's bad, we're going to fix it."
All right, and this is retired General Randolph Ailes. We should give his name.
And he's going to work for a retired Marine General, John Kelly, now the head of Homeland Security. So you have 2 Marines essentially are going to try and clean this agency up. It's been hit by scandals and embarrassments. The fellow who jumped the wall and spent 16 minutes wandering around, the other fellow who actually got into the White House, then of course the lost laptop that had some information about Trump Tower and its security, and then of course there's the issue of hookers. Yeah, it's had its issues, and this is one of these agencies that it has to be on target, right, 100% of the time.
Right, the wrong ones.
1% bad is too much.
Yeah, it's too much.
This is not, I don't know, the Department of something other.
And isn't this also a challenging time because you have a president who is a different kind of president than in the past? Always down at Mar-a-Lago, tweeting a lot, which creates a trail.
Politico had a very strong story, and they talked about a tidal wave of threats against Trump, picking up on the whole political discourse we're having these days.
And the fact that he tweets all the time. So these folks feel they have a personal connection to the president.
And here's the Secret Service. They have to protect him when he's at Trump Tower in Manhattan and when he's at Mar-a-Lago, where his wife and son are. They have to protect when he goes with a moment's notice to somewhere. He is out and about. Of course, we've got the daughter, and you've got the son-in-law, and they're out and about. So
and the son's traveling internationally here, the extended family, with their business ties?
Absolutely. These are international travelers, and the Secret Service, there's a question about how much the grown children qualify for protection. They also have to protect the vice president and some other folks too.
Sure.
It's a very big job, $2.5 billion budget, 6,800 employees. Any one of them messes up, it tarnishes all of them.
And we mentioned at the outset, morale has been a problem there. And how would this general has been in charge of other agencies? It's not like he doesn't have experience with running a lot of people in the federal government.
He was the head of 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing, both when it was here in San Diego and when it went to Iraq to al-Assad. He knows large organizations with a lot of moving parts. Once he retired, they brought him on as acting commissioner for border immigration and protection. He did a lot of work with drones there, but he knows how to deal with large organizations. And again, he's going to work for John Kelly. The two of them know each other very well. He was Kelly's selection, and Kelly has a history of when people don't get things done at any level, he removes them. There's no fussing around. Now, as I understand, there's some discord. Inevitably, there'll be employees, gee, why wasn't it one of us? Why an outsider? Well, suck it up. You know, it is what it is. Well, move on.
Yeah, he is unique in that regard because all the other folks had come up through the Secret Service
Something
ranks.
like it's been a century since something like this happened. Well, it happened. Deal with it.
Do we have a sense at all, like what the solution is here? Would they have had these scandals with
taller fences, more
fences
people
around the White House,
and a factor that says you mess up, you're gone. And I think they fired 2 folks after one of the jumpers that wandered around before being apprehended. So, but again, 1% wrong is a total failure. There's no pass-fail here. It's an F or it's an A, and it's got to be an A.
Now, this is an agency, it seems to me, that most people had a lot of respect for. I think back to the Kennedy assassination, those of us who witnessed that, and the very brave Secret Service agent who jumped on the back of the car in those famous film from the Magruders and all, and yet I think people were shocked when the prostitute scandal came out, the failure with letting these folks run around the White House grounds. This is really something where...
We're all thinking of, what, the 1993 movie with Clint Eastwood in The Line of Fire. Well, Clinton wasn't going to let it happen.
Right.
But that's a movie, and the reality is somewhat different. We'll see. I mean, yeah, these are special times, and he presents special challenges. Of course, there are always challenges, new challenges.
And with that tidal wave of threats that you mentioned here, there's no way you can look at every one of those tweets.
No,
and every one of those
they've got to look at a lot of folks that are lunatics that make a threat, and then figure out which ones are lunatics that aren't going to get out of their mother's basement,
and which ones
are real.
Yeah.
Or what if somebody's got a snoot full of jihadist mentality? Who knows?
What about some of this that they just may have to tell the president, no, you can't be in your private dining room at Mar-a-Lago with all these other people.
Well, we're running out of time, but we will have to wait and see if anybody tells Donald Trump no. Well, that will be news right there. Well, that does wrap up another week of stories at the KPBS Roundtable. And I'd like to thank my guests, Susan Murphy of KPBS News, Chris Genuine of the Times of San Diego, Steve Walsh, also of KPBS, and freelance journalist Tony Perry. And a reminder, all the stories we discussed today are available on our website, kpbs.org. I'm Mark Sauer. Thanks for joining us today on the Roundtable.